There, you happy now? No is the answer, and we haven't been happy since 2008, apparently. This is what we're talking about. I'm already out of stuff.
Dr. Pepper, too. I'm just kidding.
Where even are the backup cans? I don't even have any ice. Why don't you tell the nice people what we've been debating, and we'll all go get some ice.
I mean, I'm not specifically debating you. I'm just we're making the
work for my great theory of why everything sucked forever.
Well, that's gonna take a lot of groundwork. But at the same time, I know that ice. Is that what you want? You want ice? No. I know that you said obviously that shows before 2008 and there around were the last of the good shows, with maybe a few exceptions such as Breaking Bad, which I would say are just residual afterglow of former greatness. But then since then everything has just gone to crap. So I already made that joke. It's too late.
You didn't even have the ice. It wasn't even relevant. Where's the backup?
You keep talking about the backups, and I haven't.
I watched you bring 2 cans in here. Were those both for you?
I brought 2 cans out that were formerly mine.
Okay, because you already had a can. I thought those were the backup cans. Now we gotta go get a can. This is his fault.
Anyway, I was not ever disagreeing with that sentiment. I think it's true that shows have suffered tremendously from. My theory is slightly different than yours, because you would say it's because of the strike and because of the writer's strike of 2008, and they're in all of the minutia of needing to be paid better and all this other stuff. My theory is slightly different than yours.
Communism yet, or is it still?
We're not. I'm only slightly defending communism right now. No, but enlighten us with your theory on, because I've laid the groundwork. I agree with you that I think. I agree with you that I think shows have gone to crap after that moment, but I don't know that I blame it on the same thing that you do.
Well, what would you blame it on? Because that's the same time, unless you're going to blame it on the recession.
No, I certainly wouldn't. No. I mean, that
may have had an impact.
It certainly did, but it never has been a deciding factor in greatness.
Well, yeah, I don't think economic factors generally have that much
case in point,
sway over artistic matters.
Right. If you've ever seen like a great indie film where it's maybe not the highest budget, but still great.
I have, and you didn't like it.
Are you referring to Locke?
I'm just saying, you opened that one up.
Intentional terse. Was intentional.
I saw. You're talking about great indie films. I did.
Come on,
I have seen some great indie films.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, low budget films are not the issue. It's again, I would blame it on woke agenda, but I don't,
because it's earlier than that.
It's not though.
They laid such. That's relatively recent.
And I'm not even trying to use it as some sort of red herring or like scapegoat. I'm just saying, it was at the beginning of when they first started to try to insert political.
Yeah, but you could argue that that's been the case since the 70s.
Yeah, you could argue that, but I don't know that you'd have a good argument for it because it's so obvious now.
Because the roots of all this began in the 60s.
Well, okay, roots, but
I mean, okay, so
you're talking about the plant in full bloom.
Well, yeah, but I don't think it takes 40 years for that to bloom.
It surely did with this.
We had great stuff in the 90s. There was great stuff in the early 2000s. That was 40 years on. I don't think 10 more years is what... I don't know. First of all, I can tell this is too loud.
I'll tell you what will bloom.
I'm just saying, Breaking Bad started in 2008, which was after the writer's strike, which blows a slight hole in my theory that was the root of all evil.
But I will give you this. I think that there's an argument to be made for afterglow of previous or former greatness. Just at least
yeah, but that started after.
Long
That's
enough.
What makes it odd, because you could argue that a great show beforehand could recover, which many of them did.
But see, what happens is the writers that sucked had the temporary
got their job secured
benefit,
by their ridiculous terms.
No, had the temporary benefit of using former ideas of greatness and just
this is my other thought is
superimposing them onto current shows.
I saw they're remaking
something else.
Twister. They made it's not remaking. They made a sequel to Twister 30 years after the fact, and it's just like, okay, so clearly the 90s is when Hollywood ran out of creativity, apparently.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Because that's the last they can go back to, and it just feels like we're going to start retroactively mining goodwill from older and older series until eventually we just are out of them.
Correct. So it begs the question.
Actually, that would even be all right because that means in a couple decades we'll be remaking Shakespeare and we might actually have decent things again.
Well, I mean,
although perhaps we'll be too far into the brave new world by then, and no one will understand Shakespeare even if they could read it.
What are we doing? Let's get our bearings here.
Griping about communism is what we're doing.
This guy likes.
There's no excuse for communism.
I'm okay.
I take
let's not straw man me here.
I take the Liberty Prime solution.
I am not defending communism. What I am saying
you're giving it a foothold.
No.
Unions are communism.
That is where I disagree with you. I think that's a
I don't agree.
Casting of unions.
Well, because here's the thing. Everyone I've ever heard try to say, well, they're good in theory. They have a good point most of the time. It's like, no, I disagree. See, that's where I'm not going to give them that moral ground to say, well, communism would be great if it could be implemented properly, because the fact of the matter is, it's theft.
Well,
the idea is that something you create, you don't get to have simply because somebody else doesn't.
It's not that you don't get to have it. It's that you share a portion.
No, it means that it gets taken from you and distributed to potentially not you.
Right. So, no, not to potentially not you. You only get a small percentage of.
Even if you get any of it, because it's entirely possible it'll get taken and given just away to somebody else.
I don't think that's accurate as well.
See, this is how you're giving them more leeway than I would, because we lose the fight when you start making claims like, well, communism would be great if humans were capable of, implementing perfect systems. But the whole point is that
we're not.
Well, yeah, but see, that's not the defense. It isn't that communism would work if humans were perfect. It's that communism is a evil philosophy
that
is based on greed and resentment.
Sure.
So the idea that you get to take something that somebody else produces simply because you don't think he needs it, it's like, I reject that at the first starting point.
No, I want it more, sir. You're not listening.
So that's unions and communism.
Cut this man's throat.
I think people who know will understand what I mean when I conflate them, but if I have to argue it, I'm afraid I'll just turn into Joseph McCarthy.
I'm not trying to suggest.
What's the point of a union? The argument of a union is, well, you're
in
underappreciated.
In greater groups, we can have more impact.
But that's communism.
No, in
it's basically
greater groups,
saying, well, it's not about me; it's about all of us.
Only in.
I won't negotiate my own salary based on my own personal merits. I'm just going to say all of us, through the force of a mob, essentially.
Well, I suppose that's
bully our employer
idea.
into paying us more.
My only issue with this is, again, and so a part of this is personal, I will admit, so that no one feels like somehow I'm being disingenuous to my argument.
You did things to that man's kidneys they'll never recover from.
He loved it, every bit of it. My grandfather was a teamster and a union. What is it called? I don't even know what they're called. Union official. Wow, he was not a communist. Get up there, you freak!
I don't think you can.
He should be able to. Thank you. Grow a pair of something.
Climbing shoes.
There we go.
Like all communists, you're using familial ties to explain why communism's okay.
No, I'm not. Okay,
My grandfather was a communist, therefore communism can't be bad.
That's not what I said. Can you stop? Just for the sake of argument. I'm just
giving you 15 minutes, man. If you can't get it out in 15 minutes, I'm dropping the mini nuke. I'm getting Liberty Prime in here.
is what I'm saying is in this particular case, and I remember my grandfather telling me the story. He argued for the class of or the type of job role for paralegals at law firms, and he basically said not just one or two paralegals, but the whole entire job description of a paralegal as a whole. They half the time knew more even than the junior partners and were doing more of the work, and yet they got paid not even pittance based on what they were actually accomplishing. And so basically what his whole point was, this is not a matter of, hey, I as an individual am going to go and negotiate my salary. That's a decent argument. I'm not suggesting you don't have an argument there. But what I'm saying is, if the entirety of my spleen just got misaligned, then I better focus on this for just 1 second. Okay, something tells me this isn't going to go well. I even force punched you and you don't care.
Okay. Can't attack him. You're at an impasse. Yeah, there's too many enemies. I've said it before. There's too many enemies in this game that you just can't attack. Where it's like if you try to attack them at all, they just get a free hit on you because you have to counter them or stun them first. And Arkham Asylum did that, but there were few and they were easily signposted. Where it's like, oh, the guys with the shields, you obviously have to distract first before you can attack. That makes sense. But when it's just random orcs out of a crowd that you couldn't decipher until they get a free hit on you, that I take issue with. Okay, clearly this isn't it.
Clearly it is, when I just gutted his...
Yeah, but you also let him rip your face off several times before.
Oh, and now you pulled the spirit spear.
That thing's no good anyways.
Anyway, all I'm saying is, in that particular case, there was an argument to be made for the entirety of the job description being more appreciated and valued. And I would say that's a useful part of somebody coming in and negotiating on your behalf. It's similar to making
that's
a
where I
class
just
action
disagree
case.
with that concept of I don't want people negotiating on my behalf.
Well,
especially in the modern day, I have far too many people trying to do things on my behalf. My automotive manufacturer tries to do it. My service provider tries to do it. My cell phone provider tries to do it. It's like, how about I negotiate on my own behalf? I don't like corporations making decisions for me because they think they're good for me.
So, okay, I feel like I've stepped into something I don't know that I want to be in. Yeah,
it's just one of these.
Yeah, but it feels
Why are you in the spirit world?
That's what I was about to say. I can only be in here in the spirit
Something's broken over there.
What?
I don't know.
What if a ghosty goo comes?
Well, he's broken. You can dominate his face and...
Okay.
You can make him yours.
I think you just dug yourself in even worse.
You can have him float you around.
What is...
Carry
what
on
are
his
you?
Ghost ectoplasm.
I don't know.
It's just a thing. Phalus. Oh, this is one of these. This is one of this guy's missions.
Which guys?
Is this a time travel mission where we get to relive our ghost husband's life?
I don't know. Maybe so.
Maybe it is. Get to your point about communism.
I was never talking about communism.
You are, secretly.
You are. I'm just saying unions aren't inherent. I think they're neutral, and that some unions are terribly bad because all they accomplish is we as a
it's
collective
essentially
are more
but that's exactly
well.
Fine. If you don't want to call it communism, you must call it collectivism.
Oh,
which is a hair's breadth from communism. At best.
I don't disagree with that, but it is an important distinction.
I don't think it's that important. I think you can't have one without the other.
Well, you can have.
You certainly can't have communism without collectivism, and I don't think there's much of a productive argument to say you could have collectivism without it resulting in communism.
On a political level, yes, I agree. But that's the thing. Union isn't political.
No, of course they are. No, absolutely they're political, because all they're doing is about passing legislation, usually.
That's not
They negotiate. Law and politics are just about the same thing. Because law, I mean...
Well, it's
because you're talking about passing legislation,
business.
not.
I mean, marketplace more than anything.
No, because you're talking about getting legislation passed, not simply interpreting law.
Is it legislated? I don't know that it's legislated. I think it's more
a lot of
like,
times
for instance,
it is.
when my grandfather
Certainly, there have been unions
like
that have
CEO
gotten things
having
legislated for their own benefit, saying certain labor laws have to get passed for our.
Maybe that's the issue. Because so this whole thing.
No, the issue is unions, but go off.
The issue, I'm saying, this whole thing got started with us talking about, obviously, the writer's strike. That's such a broad... you're not just dealing with, hey, these particular writers that work for this particular company. That, to me, is more
when you start
excusable.
making arguments that say something like, when a TV show has this big of a budget, you must hire people from our guild. It's like, well, this is literally just mob rule at this point.
Correct.
This is literally, you better...
That I disagree with.
This is literally, you're going to have to pay us so that your storefront doesn't get bashed up. Who's going to bash it up if you don't pay us? Well, it's going to be us, but you don't know that.
I agree.
So that's just where you go, no, that doesn't make any sense. The idea that a collective of people has any more right or authority than an individual, I just disagree with. I'm not a Democrat. And I'm speaking that not in the political party sense, but in the actual political philosophy.
Yes, it is. Look at how sexy he was when he was alive. I'm just gonna say it. I'm not ashamed.
Mouth, not mine.
I'm not ashamed. Look at him.
You got times clicking down, and you got to kill more orcs.
Look at those. Okay.
You're on fire.
I think this is when we die. Okay, this is a dragon.
Haven't we done something similar to this, I thought?
What am I supposed to be doing
killing
about the grand execution?
Well, that I don't know, but you're supposed to be killing orcs.
Can I ride you?
I don't think we have the ability to do that yet. We have to unlock that eventually. I was having a great point that was going to come up, and then it went away now.
We got distracted
by
communism's
wrong.
My wonderful chill.
Collectivism
is not...
Oh, yeah, being a Democrat is like... And I don't mean in a party sense. I mean, I don't believe in democracy because I don't believe that...
So what do you believe in?
Well, republicanism is different because it's not just... And again, I'm speaking non-partisan. I'm saying the political philosophy of republic rather than a democracy.
Right.
Because democracy is literally just the idea that, well, because the majority of us agree, therefore this is what's going to be done or what's right. And it's like, well, I don't agree with that because a collection of people saying one thing does not make that one thing any more or less true or correct.
I agree. Whereas the distinction with...
Whereas republicanism is I mean, not perfectly so, but it's more of an individualistic because it's saying, yes, there is a certain amount of democratic process in that the people get to vote, but it isn't mere majority. There are rights involved, essentially. It comes down to individual rights, and so it's some ways of describing it is democracy.
Okay, so
democracy with limitations.
He could astral project even when he was just a normal dude. Apparently, he just had that.
That
gift.
I don't think is what the game is intending.
Well, it did it.
I think I think that's just a byproduct of that being in the rest of the game. I'd have a hard time believing that that's what they intend to suggest.
Well, I mean, he just did... Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think you were paying attention to the time limit that whole time.
No, I wasn't specifically.
Well, that'll do that. So basically, I disagree with the concept because it's saying that simply because we've banded together, that means we are worth more than we would have been privately.
Whereas a republic is different in that... How is it more individualistic? I don't
well, essentially, it's
what you're saying with that. Cause
republics, I mean, not universally... more in the modern sense, specifically in the American sense, is that you have rights that are that even democracy can't violate. So those are protected, and essentially, it's not a perfect system, but the argument is supposed to be that you have, rather than sheer majority rule, you have individual representation. And of course that doesn't work perfectly because if you had perfect individual representation, then every single citizen would be a member of the Congress, which isn't workable. Right. But the compromise for that is that you would elect someone from your local area who is more in tune with your opinions and who is more accountable to you. Well, it should be, and that's what But for example, in most European democracies, they have proportional representation, which just means you vote, all the people vote for which party they want to be in charge, and whatever percentage of the vote is distributed amongst the various parties. So this percentage of the electorate votes for this group, that means they get this many seats in parliament, or whatever the equivalent is. And essentially that has its benefits because it means smaller parties can get into power more often
or at least have a voice.
Because the other option is what they sometimes call first past the post, which is what both the UK and the US use, which is you have to have a certain number of votes, and whichever party is first to reach that number of votes is in charge, just unilaterally. They become the party in charge, as opposed to.
That's not how Congress currently is.
Yeah, it is. Whoever
Congress can be a divided Congress. It's not.
Well, yeah, but it's whoever has control basically has the control. I mean, there's the majority, and then there's the minority, and then that's it.
Well, kind of it comes down to the problem of bipartisanship. It's.
Oh gosh, we have to kill. They've killed twice as many as me. How much more could I have killed? Okay, why is he not dead yet? I was just going around killing people. I didn't realize these guys were so fast.
So the drakes killed more orcs than you. Dominate the beasts and turn.
Oh, so we can do that. So apparently he had the ability, even though we don't now. Because we haven't unlocked that skill, but I guess he did in his past
Well, but
life.
it just says beasts.
Well, I presume that's referring to the dragons. Or drakes.
I don't know.
Well, there's no other beasts around.
Is that the truth? Because we may have just
We got the prompt that one time, so give it a try. See if he could have done it, even though we can't in the modern day. But essentially, I mean, I wasn't intending this to get into political philosophy, but the argument is...
but it's interesting, because it comes back to really the
Because the way it should work theoretically... Because, for example, in fact, I've been keeping up with this somewhat more because of the recent British elections, because there are people in England who reasonably have questions about the first past the post system because of the fact that in the most recent election, this is not going to make much sense to anybody who's not in UK politics, but I'm going to use it as an example nonetheless because it's recent.
How do I get up to them is the problem.
Well, I think you have to wait for one of them to land. But because essentially England has effectively the same kind of bipartisan state, despite the fact that there are other parties, but they're primarily Tories versus Labour is the two main ones, similar to Democrats and Republicans in the U.S. And it's like, yes, there's technically a Libertarian Party in the U.S., but they never get any power because they're too small. And similarly, the U.K. has other parties that are too small to gain any real representation because they have the first past the post system. Now, theoretically, for example, most recently when Labour took over from the Tories in the most recent election, the Labour Party did not actually gain any more votes than they had previously in the last election, which was a year I forget. But like their vote share did not increase. The Tory vote share massively dropped because they were in charge for the past 14 years, and if you've kept up with UK politics, you know how poor things are going. So essentially, the Tories lost most of their share. The Labour didn't pick up any of their share, which meant the only reason Labour won is because basically a bunch of people who previously would have voted Tory didn't vote at all or voted for smaller independent parties. But because they're too small independent parties, they don't get much representation. So Labour ends up becoming the dominant government, even though they didn't actually get that much of a vote share. It's like a fifth of the population voted for them. So some people say, well, if it was proportional representation, then those smaller parties, which didn't get enough votes to get first past the post, but they would have gotten a decent chunk of the vote share. They would have gotten like another 15% of the electorate.
I can't get a hold of any of the dragons.
Well, you're going to have to wait for them to land, and I don't think that's the only way to make it work, but that's what the game seems to think would help. Anyways, this is not... I'm not an expert enough to go into all this, nor am I going to... If I go much longer, I'm going to forget how it ties back into what I was meaning. In fact, that's probably already happened. Because...
Well, You were getting it.
Oh, yes. So the argument, though, is, and one of the guys actually who have been following on UK stuff says he still defends first past the post, not necessarily because of that, the math of how you calculate first past the post, but he's just saying in European stuff, it's basically this party got this percentage of the entire national vote, so we're going to give them a proportionate amount of the seats in Parliament. And that's it. Oh, okay, so he's on the ground and I can't get to him.
Okay.
But what that means is...
While sprinting on the shoulder charge attack.
Elven Rage!
I don't think that's going to help you. That's not what...
Well, I've got to kill a bunch of these things, and I've got to weaken this thing enough to get on top of them, so... No! He's gone. Hey, I've killed more than the dragons, though, by at least twice. Let's see how fast that stays. Ooh, that was intense. I'm doing better than dragons, except there's nobody around me. Die today.
I like his motif, the double sword.
He isn't double sword. He's got one.
Yes, he's got two. He's got a long sword and then one little.
Well, yeah, but
that's
not. I think he only does that for bar mitzvahs and.
What?
I think it's an occasional thing. It's a skill he only whips out occasionally. I'm winning against dragons for some reason.
From Celebrimbor.
I don't know what. I have to keep up. The dragons are gonna catch up with me soon.
You actually are doing decently though. So.
Well, I think it was my Elven Rage. Okay, kill the man. Why are you just doing a dance? Get back here, you!
Distracted by
you were supposed to die at that dance. All right, fellas, we've got to keep up with dragons. They're gonna get Elven Rage. Got to get my Elven Rage on.
It didn't help.
That's what they always say. I've got 30 seconds to stay alive.
Once you go elf, you never have to be by yourself.
I'm not going to help you out here. No, they're getting too close. That's not going to help, man. Ah! I'm only 2 ahead. 3 ahead. 10 seconds. There's no more orcs.
There's not enough.
There's no more orcs.
The Urix.
Where's the orcs? They're gonna... You're dying today, lads! Woo!
Oh, that
How many did I win by?
Close.
Well, I even killed the Drake. Oh. I didn't know I did
there
that,
you go.
But all right. Woo. I've completely lost the thread now. Communism's bad, kids. That's all I can remember. I was gonna tie back into that somehow, but then I had 2 Elven Rangers. And a bunch of orcs died, and I killed a dragon.
And now they're both unconscious.
That's how I've had D&D sessions that go like that.
Wow.
Okay, well, that was that, I guess. But anyways, oh yes, the defense is supposed to be that in a first past the post system, or strictly in a republic, generally you vote in a local level to say this guy is the one who represents our interests, or my interests more specifically, because the constituent groups are meant to be small enough that you can have enough interaction with your representative that they would represent you faithfully. Correct. And if they won't do that, you'll find someone else.
Correct.
Therefore, you then send them to the main assembly, whatever that be, whether it be a parliament or a congress or whatever it happens to be. And that is... And it's not... I mean, because I don't know that the Romans had an equivalent of like a constitution that says these are the rights that government's not allowed to infringe upon, because that's more important than just republicanism versus democratic in the Roman versus Greek sense.
Yeah, but Greeks had polis. I mean, that's not...
Yeah, but they were a much more pure democracy where it's like everyone votes and whatever vote wins the majority wins. Whereas the argument is people in this constituency vote and then we send this guy, and so he represents our constituency, and this is why the U.S. has both the Senate and the Congress, which is you have proportional representation in one and equal representation in the other. Because it's fair enough to say California does deserve certain amount more representation because there's more people there, But they don't just get to dictate for every other state.
Also a bunch of idiots.
They don't just get to say, well, all other states have to follow our rules because we have the majority of the people. It's like, well, no, Rhode Island has 2 senators, just as many as California has. So they can't bull over Rhode Island just because they have way less, a fraction of the population. Now, this is beyond, because my point, this was an aside at first. I have to figure out, oh, hey, we get to write a poem. Because the point was not meant to describe various forms of political assembly, but rather, I don't believe that democracy in and of itself does not attribute power to a group simply because, well, most of us agree, therefore this is right. So, and I mean,
well,
the democratic process, as in people being able to choose, as in literally power of the people, that is not what I'm disagreeing with. I'm saying democracy as the majoritarian rule that says, well, just because we are a group means that we have authority. It's like, well, no, that is literally just a mob at that point. Because you could say, well, if I just gather up enough people who agree with me, that's my political party, and we can go tell our
but I don't know
employer that he has to listen to us, otherwise we'll make his life difficult.
I don't know that proportional representation changes that method, though.
Proportional representation is more pure democracy.
Than equal share or equal representation?
Well, what do you mean? It's not equal representation, it's majority representation.
Yeah,
basically,
but
whoever gets the majority is in charge. That's what democracy is in its purest sense. That was ancient Greek democracy, was just majority wins.
Sure, but
that means that if the majority decides, well, because I mean, communism could function democratically. It did, in big quotes.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
And that's like, okay, well, if you get enough angry, hungry people together, they can say, well, hey, we're the majority and we want to take the land from the farmers. That's technically a democratic ruling. It's just against a concept that is foreign to communism, such as individual rights. And I think unions are similarly disregarding the concept of individual rights.
Are they foregoing for like a CEO? Again, I don't disagree with you that on a
it's not even CEO's rights. It's the fact that, like, okay, should you be forced to join a union just to have a certain job? I think that's ridiculous.
Oh no, I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, but that's what almost all unions do.
See that
because and here's why they have to do that, because otherwise they would lose their legitimacy.
And see that I don't know how would they lose their legitimacy?
Because people wouldn't want to pay the dues to be a part of the union, which means they would no longer
be able to then have the benefits. It makes perfect sense to me.
But the problem is too many people would make that choice, so the unions have to limit the number of non-union workers.
Yeah, then it's a problem.
Yeah, but that's the whole point, is the only reason they do that is because they would lose their quote-unquote mandate or their authority if they didn't have enough members. So they have to limit the amount of people who can work for someone that aren't a member of their group.
Well, when I was a cutter, for instance, that was technically union, and we had to.
Yeah, but I would just not.
I think it's not ridiculous, but like I'm not disagreeing that part is any sort of mandatory opting in. I find ridiculous. All I'm saying is, I don't know that it takes away the rights of any sort of business executive if. It's
not their rights. It's the rights of the members.
I'm saying only within the context.
Well, also it does because
versus
it gets hairy when you talk about public ownership of a company, which is dumb in itself.
Right, but
the CEO theoretically has the right if he does own the company.
I'm talking about. I don't think it should be legislated. I agree is a problem. If it's like broad enough that it's legislated, personally. Sure. But if it's something where it's like this particular company needs to pay their people more because we've decided.
I am making the most incoherent poem possible. There aren't even enough words. Well, this doesn't make enough sense. There's not even enough words in this. Okay, so apparently I can't make a nonsensical Mad Lib of a sentence. Fine. Yeah, there's not enough words for me to choose from. Because theoretically, if you own a business, it's your business.
Yes.
And so the rights that you have, and this again gets dodgy when you're talking about a business that's publicly traded, when there's a board of directors and investors and all that. That does muddy the water.
Well, but then the board.
But if you own the company, then regardless of what your employees want, it's your company. You can choose how they get paid. And the most they can do is just quit because they could find better work elsewhere. That's what capitalism is actually intended to provide, is to say,
right.
If a CEO is being unreasonable and saying, I refuse to pay more than this, and the workers know that they can earn more than that somewhere else, they will go somewhere else. The problem is that necessitates them going somewhere else. And there is this strange notion that arises in the 20th century that I should not only be entitled to a job, I should be entitled to a job where I want the job. So the guy here doesn't offer what I need to survive, but I could get a job at this other place, which would entail me having to move, which I don't want to do. Therefore, I'm just going to bully the guy who doesn't pay in my area and make him do that, basically by collecting a bunch of people together and threatening him, essentially. Rather than just saying, okay, this guy's not being reasonable, I'm going to go find work where it can be had, and if that means I have to move, that sucks, I guess. But that's also, you can't just make the guy pay you more just because you want him to. And now, theoretically, you should be able to, if he had any sense, he'd listen to the market and say, okay, I'm going to lose all my employees if I don't pay at least this much. But people don't like trusting the market, I guess. I don't know what I'm supposed to do unless I'm supposed to...
I guess what it really comes down to is, again, the collective is made up of the individual, and if they don't unify in a organizational sense, there still is a collective pattern or statistic that then comes about simply because of the individuals. Like, for instance, say the union mob mentality out of the equation. There's multiple employees that individually go to the CEO and say, because of this. So in the case of what I used before when I talked about paralegals, say all these paralegals of this particular firm go to the managing partner and say, hey, I think I need a raise, I've done this or whatever, and you have that multiple times. That's
find another job.
No, that's what I'm saying. You're actually an individual trying to negotiate your own salary, but now you've heard that now multiple times.
From one company or from different companies?
What?
Are you negotiating your salary at different places or all at one place multiple times?
No, I'm saying I'm an individual. I've negotiated my salary.
At your one company, or have you looked at other companies?
Particular company.
Then the argument is, if you're truly worth what you want, go to another company and they will pay that.
No, of course.
Or they won't pay it either because you're not worth what you're thinking.
You're now making a different point.
No, you're saying simply because you're arguing that just because I've attempted to negotiate this many times.
No, that's not what I'm saying. So listen to what I'm saying.
Okay,
I'm saying,
finish your point then.
No, I'm saying multiple people. So what I'm saying is, a union becomes almost unnecessary when you have a collective of people that have done the same thing. Like, say you have 20 paralegals that all work at this one firm, and they all, in the course of 2 months, go and have this conversation with the managing partner to say, hey, I'd like a difference in my salary or whatever. The managing partner would be a fool not to go, okay, I have to reconsider this on a broad level.
Sure, but simply because it would be a fool not to does not mean that you have the right to make him do it.
Oh, I agree. I agree with that.
I don't know what I'm supposed to even do because it's not even letting me...
I think...
My only options are to just switch words, and there aren't enough words.
Well, you're going to have to reuse words, clearly.
That's what I thought, because if I do... Because this would still make sense. I've had to reuse 2 words, but it does still make sense in context. Like this, but it doesn't seem to let me do that. Now, the problem is, if I have to leave some words blank, I don't know which words I should leave blank. And even if I did leave some words blank, let's just say I left these 2 blank. Like, this makes sense, but like, what even is the button I push? Because there isn't even a button that I can push to confirm. Whoop. Okay, I think I just backed out. Either that or I succeeded without knowing. Did I succeed without knowing it, or? Okay, so that was just me backing out. Or is it that I have to... Oh, 4 out of... Okay, so I haven't gotten all the words yet. I'm dumb. That's what the 4 out of 6 was referring to. So we have to find more of the Ithildine throughout the world to unlock words for the poem. That took me longer than it should have to figure that out.
No, what I'm getting at is, if you don't organize...
the argument is, so what if 20 of you do it all at once? Then 20 of you find different jobs all at once, and then he's still just as screwed.
Yes, I'm making that point.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you should organize and then demand it all at once. You should all just go find your own separate jobs.
To rule, one must be willing to...
Because the argument is you're trying to say just because there's a lot of us, he has to change. The argument is no, he doesn't have to change at all. Just because there's lots of you who think that he should, that's not how it works. That was incredibly fast.
I don't know that it's a... What is going on here?
A thing. I found a flashback.
She learned from Sauron as I did. She survived him as I did.
Then there is wisdom in these words.
Are we supposed to be seeing something or just hearing this? Because we're not hearing it very much. Oh, well, that was it. Oh, that was all the Shelob stuff for this area. Cool.
I feel like we actually accomplished something this time.
Well, vaguely. We did a 1 flashback mission and Shelob's tragic backstory. We haven't done anything with the actual orcs, which is what we're supposed to be doing. Dominate captains. Alright, who's on the list?
What I'm saying is, in the case of Greek Polis, obviously, the reason, in my estimation, that worked better is because
I don't know that it did.
It was far more each individual city, state, or in their case, a polis, was represented individually. They were. I mean, it's like, okay, yeah, we get to decide what's going on within the context.
Well, yeah,
of this.
but it was still majoritarian, which means
it is.
If you didn't agree, but there was more people that did, then you just had to suck it up
or move.
Yeah, fair enough. But that's precisely what I'm arguing.
Well, okay. So I'm making this case with you now. I'm understanding what you're saying. My point is,
this is a lot of intel in one spot. Hold still. Know what this guy had for breakfast by the time I'm done here. Oh, get over here. Get over to him. Okay. Gruk, the scholar? What's he a scholar of?
He looks baked out of his mind. Look at him. Zoom up on his eyes. He hasn't slept in 4 years.
I don't think it's sleep he's having problems with. I like him just because of his weird vibes.
Jeez, for ganja.
Shush. No. Get back here with my delicious intel.
Come and beat you with a stick.
Get back here with my intel. How do I pull the Sonic maneuver? Yep. You fell.
Sonic maneuver.
Right. There's a new guy on the field today. Tugog. He's just trying to pull a Dr. Doom, and I'm saying no.
He looks like a child.
He's wearing a Dr. Doom mask.
Who put a knife in that child's hands?
One more intel for me today. Whoa, not this way. Come on, son. Get away. He's getting away. I shall have intel. Get off whatever you're on. I want intel. Whoa, okay, he's gone. He's gone. Well, now that I've caused a giant ruckus here, see you later, fellas. Oh yeah, fight the Karagor for me. I don't care much for him. Anyways.
No. What I'm understanding now is your point that, and we've made this point before on a political level, which is the collective becomes a given when individuals simply, of their own right, make the statement multiple times, like from multiple places. So it doesn't need to be that we all get together and make the statement at the same time. It can be, again, 20 people coming to negotiate salary at a single firm and going, oh, these people are wanting more money. And they all happen to be paralegals. It's like they can infer and go, let's change the whole structure of that particular thing if they want to. But I don't see that where I go, there is a benefit to union context is that I say if the
Darn it.
say you've put in multiple years at this particular firm and you don't want to see, well, it certainly gives you some skin in the game.
Well, no, it just means that you might care, but what does that earn you in terms of rights? I'm just trying to have a look at this.
It's a matter of rights. It's simply just...
Yeah, it's not. You don't have a right to it just because you've worked there a long time.
Well, okay.
You might say, well, don't I deserve some kind of recognition? No. I mean...
It's not about recognition. What I'm saying is you don't want to then just up and leave.
Yeah, I agree that you may not want to, but so what?
Place.
So what? If they're not going to pay you, the question is, do you put up with it because you don't want to move, or do you move because you don't want low pay? That's your answer. People. The problem is
you get together with multiple people and say, no, you are going to pay us more.
Yeah, that's called bullying or mob.
Well, sure, it's bullying, but I mean, sometimes, to be honest with you, people need to be shoved into doing the right thing at times.
No, I don't necessarily think that ever works. Doing the right thing resentfully doesn't make it any better. Well, hello. Realistically speaking, I would have launched my head so far up his butt. I'd have given him a real good colonoscopy. You've got some cysts in here, orc pal.
Good gracious, no.
Hey, while I'm up here, hand me these forceps.
By the time you came back out, he'd have a rose the size of his torso.
I need one more filled in. Where is it?
Oh, dear.
Oh, my bad.
I'm not condoning mob mentality, but there is a point in which you say... I mean, I kind of am. I mean, if someone refuses to see reason, they should be made to see. It's a little bit of the, look at it, I want you to look at it. I mean, we've talked about this before, but it's...
the only place where I think that that's of any reasonable legitimacy
is morality.
Well, it's either moral, well, I mean, yes. And I would expand that to include a violation of rights, because essentially, if you're talking...
Well, but I don't like that because that becomes highly politically defined. And
it ought not to be, because rights are actually philosophically defined, strictly speaking. The concept of what are your rights is not something the government gives you, or at least should not.
But they are systematized and therefore put into effect by
the argument is they're guarded by political systems, but that's also precisely the logic that says if you fail these rights, if you do not uphold them, then I am justified in overthrowing your structure. But that's the only time. You don't get to overthrow the structure just because they're not paying you what you think you should be paid.
I don't think it's an assault of right to be paid less. That's not what I'm saying.
Exactly, but that's my point, where I just go, okay, well then that... Oh, okay. What is this?
Trust in your training, not your arm.
That is the point at which... That is the only point at which that kind of action is justified. To say...
mob mentality is justified if it's a violation of rights.
But even then, I don't know that you'd call it a mob.
I'm saying
because
like...
the argument would be, it's not the mob, it isn't that you as a... It isn't but just because you've got a group of people together that makes you right. The fact of the matter is, if you have rights and they're being violated,
I understand
it actually doesn't matter if it's a group or if it's just you. Now, you won't affect much change if it's just you. That's true.
Well, but so there is effectiveness at that point.
Well, yes, there's effectiveness, but we're not talking about effectiveness.
I've
never argued that unions are effective. The problem is that they actually are effective when they shouldn't be. They are effective when they're
not
interfering with
bad. Because there are times unions can work to good effect. But again, your definition of that would be if it's moral or
But then it's
violation
not
of
a
rights
union.
only. It is.
No.
It would still be a union.
No.
Okay. One of the unions, like for instance,
the Continental Army was not a union.
No, okay. I'm not talking about that. What I'm saying is...
I'm saying the only time when the use of majority force, or not even majority force, but collective force is justified is when it's on the violation of rights.
Okay.
So essentially, I'm talking about revolution.
No, but what I'm saying is...
I am.
Okay, you are, but I'm saying you can violate a right without overthrowing a government. That's not what I'm...
I'm not saying you can violate the right. I'm saying if your rights are violated...
You don't automatically have... It's like down with the government. Once my rights are violated. It could be a microcosm within a given field. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but those aren't your rights. You don't have a right to a certain pay scale.
No, I'm not talking about pay scale. See, you're automatically going there. What I'm saying is,
you were saying.
I'm saying
what right could a businessman actually deny from you? Whoa.
Okay, so in the case of this whole new... Okay, I remember him, but he looks a lot more creepy up close.
He ambushed me, which is something that's not happened before.
He's
I'm fine with killing you, so
a weird, nasty sword. So take him out.
He's
okay.
Boy,
he wasn't okay.
He's a tough fella.
What I'm getting at, so
he's got me with his nasty sword.
Been the time that the actors went on strike because of the use of AI being used to basically replicate their. So I'm like, that's a violation of right, 100%. And you would say it is a union, but it's being used to the effect that you were arguing for. So here's what I'm going to say. It sounds like...
Likeness rights are a questionable thing, philosophically speaking, in my opinion. I mean, do you have the right to something that you
to your own face?
Because that would imply then that someone, like, if you have a doppelganger, are they infringing on your rights?
Well, no, but
no, it's just coincidence.
Is.
Hey! Well, yeah, but identity theft isn't the same. Forthog? I don't remember you, but I'm glad you killed him because I didn't want you to die. Has he got a goatee, no less? I'm pretty sure it was the guy from Pawn Wars, or Pawn whatever that show was.
Pawn
Stars.
Which one? Chumley?
I don't know, the main guy, the bald guy.
Dang it.
I'm poisoned all the way. But at least, hey, I got Forthog. I don't remember him at all.
When he was a young Forthog.
He's got to stay on my team. And apparently he's already on my team.
So, for you, as long as the moral guide supersedes the commencement of the union, you're okay. So in other words,
no, because I don't think it's a union at that point. A union is a business/political affiliation only. There's no.
But there are times that businesses absolutely can violate moral right. I think.
I won't deny that categorically, but I'm not sure what they would be. Nor do I think most unions are formed to address such things.
I think that in a perfect world, that's what it was originally for.
Well, but see, that's where I say screw your perfect world because it doesn't exist.
But
all
I'm saying is if there's even one case of a union being useful for that, then I made my point, which is that unions aren't inherently bad. It's just that they're used to bad ends most of the time, which I wouldn't disagree with.
I still would in a sense because, again, it's a little bit like my communism argument where it's like, it isn't that it is flawed because it doesn't work. It's flawed, I think, in practice because I think anytime something that should be undertaken on an individual basis is undertaken collectively, I think that is already on shaky ground.
So,
because because essentially then the collective takes the place of the individual. And you might say,
I agree.
Well,
that I
you
think
might
is
argue that
a
you've
line.
chosen the individual has chosen the collective to represent them, I still think that's a morally inferior case.
But in the case,
represent yourself.
But in the case of unions that force members to be members, I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
so
but that's pretty much almost all unions do.
You're correct. That's true because again, I wasn't able to opt out of my
clearly
own.
the rot is at the very least deep-seated, if not all the way down.
Sure. No, I would concede. I think that again, even the evidence of my own having to have participated in union in the past, it was annoying to me. I was like, the fact that a part of my paycheck
goes
to
a little bit like
this,
an HOA again.
It is
like,
100%.
I honestly just don't think that they're reasonable.
Yeah, well,
because some people argue, well, they could be used to good effect if they weren't always dumb. But I'm like, yeah, but why are they always dumb? That seems to suggest that something in its inherent framework is lended towards inherent dumbness.
But so how do you protect? I mean, what's the extreme or aggressive protection of the individual? Well, yeah, anarchist. Yeah, sure. Well, I'm saying
strictly anarcho-libertarianism, if I had to be very specific.
How is that different from genuine or
Well, the trouble anarchy. The problem with anarchy is actually
No, I'm not talking about then anarchy. I'm saying you said anarcho, like
anarcho-libertarianism.
Yeah, so it's a blend of both.
Well, essentially, I mean, technically, there's no real difference. True libertarianism is that.
So the distinction, though, being
because anarchy is one of those. I would actually defend anarchy by the metric I have denied communism, which is it actually would be proper if it weren't for the fact that humans are faulty.
Sure.
Because if all people acted right, then there would not need to be laws.
Well, sure.
So the problem is we need laws because people won't act right. So it is the opposite of communism in that it is a non-flawed. It's a non-flawed philosophy that simply doesn't work in a flawed world.
Right.
Whereas I believe that communism, whether it worked or whether it could work or not, is flawed at its inherent basis. So libertarianism is essentially the acknowledgement that there must be some structures of order, but that they should be as limited as they can be.
Which I would argue all of the greats, as far as presidentially in the states, have had that perspective.
Filled in, so I've got to go back to my...
Limiting government, especially on a federal level, has always been the best.
Why is it so few presidents have made it their goal then?
Well, I think that's sad that it's few and far between. But I mean,
exactly.
like I said, again, I reiterate, any of the great presidents. I mean, Reagan.
We weren't even talking. Well, the thing about Reagan, as you start to learn more, is you recognize that he was probably the beginning of the end. In that, I think he still had the right ideas, but he definitely also...
He soft-pedaled some. Sure.
Yeah, and some people would argue, fairly enough, that he was content, essentially, on a political level, to let certain things slide for the sake of gaining...
Other things.
Sure. Yeah. So it's essentially like his whole presidency, you could argue, was ending the Cold War. Which he did. Congratulations to him.
Yeah.
And in achieving that, he allowed a lot of liberal ideals to be passed politically. Sure. And the problem is, because he let that happen, that has sort of paved the way for the kind of modern neoconservative.
Ooh.
Because people think, well, Reagan let these sorts of things pass. It's like, yes, but those were concessions.
That's a very true statement. I just think that's a very accurate statement.
Well, yeah, it's unfortunate.
Neoconservatism is
it does come from not from him that he was a neoconservative necessarily.
No.
Because I think he was making necessary trade-offs given what he was attempting to do.
Doing it,
but I think people think, well, Reagan allowed these things, therefore those must be conservative things. It's like, well, no.
No, exactly.
They were conservative offerings so that other things could get done.
Correct.
But that doesn't make this a conservative principle, just because a conservative president. I'm going after Ukabook.
Okay, but did you not notice that Ronk the Gab's got something going on?
No, these are his allies. It's red. Only the red matters, and only this guy. Where's the red? Someone was having a fight.
Just had a fight. Somebody died then. Was it the front guy?
Grook's got a problem with Nakra, but Nakra doesn't know it apparently. Only Grook's. That's weird. Normally it goes both ways.
Grook the Scholar.
So maybe...
I wonder if you can warn Nakra.
Maybe Grook's...
Paddywhack.
I wonder if Grook's got he's planning something that Nakra doesn't know about.
Crack.
I'm not so attached to Grook that I need to interfere with this. If he gets weeded out, I'll consider that selection. But I'm going after Ukabuk. Oh wait, I need intel on some guys though.
Where's what's his name that came out of the woodwork with his
Stakuga?
With his massive loot. It looked like he just smacked that guy with a loot.
Well, let's reveal intel about Krook or Crook.
Crook. Oh dear.
I thought that said morally sickly. It's like, Nietzsche, good to see you.
Wow.
I'm joking.
Although these through.
All right, I'm going after.
Well, I feel like we've arrived at a fairly good place.
Well, we didn't talk at all about TV, which is how this started. So.
Well, let's get back to TV.
Well,
should the strike have happened?
In the next episode, given that this has been an hour of political waffling.
It hasn't been waffling.
It's been back and forth. Waffling's not bad. I like waffles.
I like waffles all over me.
All right, there's Ukabuk. What's his deal?
I think that was a little bit more of a longer...
That was the end of that episode.
That was a dramatic pause.
Is he wearing a breastplate, or is that just how chiseled he is?
He's lubed himself
He looks like he's made of metal.
He's lubed himself with engine oil.
He's taken the beatnik hair care routine to a whole new level.
Come again?
Talking about when they actually legitimately
greased hair,
grease
yeah,
for their hair.
yeah.
He's just gotten a little confused.
Or he thinks he's got
He's
hair
enraged
everywhere.
by weakness. Well, maybe he does. Maybe he used to. And the oil singed it all off. He's a tank. That's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt.
Something about making you hard. I was a little worried there for a second.
Can be killed instantly by beast attacks. Well, that
helps.
No, it doesn't, because I don't want to kill him.
Oh, I thought you did.
No, I want to weaken him, because I want him on my team. His name's Ukabuk. He's vulnerable to stealth. That's useful.
Can you...
Fear of being...
I wonder if you can cure...
Damaged by range attacks. This is what I need. Damaged by executions, damaged by fire, and he's vulnerable to stealth. That's what I need to know. Damaged by range and fire and executions, because that needs saying. And he's vulnerable to stealth, so that's how I'll get him.
I wonder that's what they said after Lincoln died.
He was vulnerable to executions and
He
stealth.
was vulnerable to executions.
He was weak to executions and stealth.
That's terrible.
Thing is, most
Too
people
soon.
Thing is, most people are, and that just goes without saying.
Oh, that's awful. I can't believe I even made that joke.
Well, I mean, so was Kennedy. I mean, they're all... Most people are vulnerable to executions and stealth.
Turns out, that's everyone.
Pretty much. Teddy Roosevelt was about the only one who got away with that. Teddy Roosevelt was invulnerable to stealth and executions.